Hey, welcome back to Lap of the World. I'm Richard, and I will first of all apologize for any echo you may hear. As you might have gathered from the intro there, I have things in the garage, studio, whatever you want to call it, a bit emptied out at the moment. So first, no worries, I've not been evicted or anything like that. I actually just had this epiphany over the winter that if I'm really going to be doing a bunch of stuff going forward, I'm going to want a comfortable place to work on the cars. And it had always been in the plan to finish out the garage and put some kind of climate control in here. And my original thought was to DIY most of that and then just have a professional come out to install the HVAC system, because that's something I kind of want to be able to yell at somebody about rather than having to figure it out myself. I've had zero experience doing that. Drywall and insulation, I think, is pretty straightforward, albeit tedious and labor intensive. But I had this thought that over the winter, I guess, it would probably be a good idea to just go ahead and get it done and be finished with it. I've got enough stuff going on between having your stereotypical 9-to-5 day job, trying to keep the channel up and running with weekly uploads, and doing stuff on the cars. And the doing stuff on cars part, that's a crucial decision maker, because although we are not afflicted with the same level of winter that you might get up in Minnesota or somewhere like that, and nor are we afflicted with the level of summer that you get in Florida, in East Tennessee it does get very humid and muggy in the summer, and it gets cold enough that your fingers don't quite work right in the winter. In order to facilitate keeping both the NSX in top shape and finally getting some work done on the poor Datsun, I went through the suspension 3 or 4 years ago and it's immaculate, and then the poor thing's been sitting for for 3 years while the family played musical houses, and I got the channel up and running, and the NSX has been getting all the attention. And that is a project that I want to finish. What I do with it after that, I don't know. But that's kind of where we're at. So I do apologize that there may be a dearth of actual driving and car content for the next, hopefully just the next 2 weeks, I would say, as I get things kind of taken care of in here. But right now, the thing I want to talk about today is I'm having a bit of a quandary with respect to how to set things up in here. It's kind of a blank slate, and what I'm working with, though, just to overview here, is I've got a space that is from the door to the back wall is basically 29 feet. It's like 28 and 11 inches and something, whatever, some small change. And then width-wise, it's 19 feet more or less. The footprint of the building is 20 by 30, which is the largest that it could be with the town regulations or town code or whatever you want to call it, without applying for a variance. Would I like it to be bigger? Of course, you always want it to be bigger, but when I looked at the budget, when I started talking over it with a contractor that I had to do the work, great guy, and I kind of established that it wasn't worth the time and extra expense to apply for the variance, because I really couldn't justify spending more or spending enough to make it enough larger in the scope of the project that I had going on and other things that we had going on at the time. We're having to deal with a little bit of a grade. So like the land on that side of the garage is higher than on that side of the garage, and then also front to back and the slope of the driveway. And to make it any larger, there was going to be some really significant grade work that had to happen. So this is what we're working with, and I love it. It's been a great space so far. I've been able to get a lot more done than I would have been able to in a kind of not crowded but not exactly spacious 2-car garage that we also use to park in for our my wife's daily and our sort of utility truck, if you want to call it that. Now that I have this clean slate, I'm having a bit of a quandary as far as how to lay things back out. Now, the way I had it before was with the idea that I could either stack 2 cars end to end, barely, with inches to spare between the back wall and the garage door, or I could have more room to walk around either one of them with the Datsun turned sideways as it is now, and the NSX parked such that I could get it in and out pretty easily. Now, I'm not sure I want to go back and do that, and what I would actually ideally rather do is be able to sort of pull one car, you know, most of the way in. Okay, I know I'm doing a lot of gesticulating, so instead, what I'm going to do now is attempt animation. And this could go horribly wrong, so I apologize if then there is no animation and I jump back into actually just sort of explaining this. But what I'd like to be able to do is park one car further into the garage and leave enough space that behind it I could pull a second car in and angle it off to what would be the driver's right as you're pulling in, and park it sort of catty corner in the garage, but park it such that the other car could still get out, because there's certainly room in here to park cars side by side. It's just a question of the angle to get around the cutout for the door. And the cutout for the door is there for the good reason, in that I wanted a covered patio. Because it's detached from the house, and it tends to rain here quite a bit, I felt it would be very nice to have a little bit of an awning. Not very much at all, but minimum required space for having kind of an awning or an overhang, so I could stand under that to unlock or lock the door in a torrential rain without, you know, or open up an umbrella or something without being soaked. That's something I dealt with at our last house, and I didn't want to deal with it again, so that was actually on purpose, although it does eat into the floor space. So I'd like to be able to park the cars, one sort of further in, and one kind of cockeyed, and have still enough room in the back right corner of the garage for most of the tools and cabinetry and, you know, compressor and things like that, just, you know, standing items. And then I would like to keep the rest of the floor area as clear as possible. The other thing I want to make sure and do is actually leave a space for myself to film out here. You know, every time I want to film a piece in the garage, I don't want to have to do a shell game with cars or put something on dollies or whatever else. I want to just be able to come out here, you know, throw up a camera and some lights if I need them for what I'm doing, and then knock it out. I don't want to have to come out here and reorganize in order to film. And by the same token, if I come out here and film and then I'm done, I also don't want to have to reorganize or necessarily shuffle all that stuff away immediately in order to do some small project or maintenance on a car. So having said all of that, it kind of brings me to what I would call the interactive portion of today's vlog, where I ask you guys for some help. Now, I'm going to be noodling this myself and trying to figure it out. However, you know, there's nothing like, you know, 384 of you subscribed at this point in time, you know, thinking about the same problem and, you know, potentially coming up with something better than what I've thought of on my own. So if you have time and you want to, I've left the dimensions of both the garage floor space from, you know, block wall to block wall, as well as the dimensions of the two cars that I'm working with currently. It's the NSX and the Datsun 280Z Resto Mod sans bumpers, to see if you can possibly come up with a different arrangement that doesn't involve a 4-post lift. I'm going to go ahead and strike that one out, because that's, again, you want to talk about having a big production to get something out of the garage. I don't have that stable yet. I'm not out of garage bays. I just need a way to park them so I don't have to move one to get to the other one out. But yeah, if you have any ideas about that and want to send me, you know, proposed solutions for where to put workbenches and cabinets and things like that. I don't have a lot of crap, and I will have a little bit of an attic space up there in which I can have some just kind of, you know, my boxes of spare parts or stuff that I've taken off the NSX that I haven't thrown out because I'm not sure if they're going to continue to make it or if they're going to be available. So at some point I might have to have somebody 3D scan and, you know, or, you know, laser scan and 3D print me something. So I have a lot of that junk that I'm hanging on to at this point in time, so I'm not too worried about storage space. I figure I'll do some like high shelves or something like that. But if anybody else has some other ingenious things or really efficient solutions that they've come up with in their own garages, I'd love to hear about them or have a link to them in the comments below or something like that. So I apologize for this being a little bit more lap of my garage versus lap of the world, but we'll get back to doing track stuff. I'm going to say in March at this point. I haven't signed up for anything because I've had this on the docket as well as some other things. My wife's been traveling for work. You know, I was sick last month, which kind of took me out for a little bit, and I had to play catch up at my own work. But yeah, we'll get back into it. And you know, the NSX seems like it doesn't need much. I've got a air conditioner compressor pulley or idler pulley that I need to put back on because it was making some noise. But other than that, she seems in rude health. And yeah, I don't see anything stopping us. So I'm going to leave it there for today. Appreciate you watching. Again, please leave any ideas you have on the garage in the comments below. And I'll see you in the next video, if not at the track.